Victoria MacGregor, Victoria's Press. It's such a pleasure to welcome you to this interview series, Storytellers and the Photo. It's such a privilege to meet you and to walk through this and to have you become such an important part of what we're doing with Ponga. I'm thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Barbara. That's such a nice introduction. I'm thrilled to be here.
Tell us a little bit about what brought you to Ponga in the first place and storytelling and how you got into all of this.
Ponga sort of jumped up at me as something that looked like it would be very helpful to me. I love old photographs. Love that. Love the black and white. Love that they're all ripped and torn and not perfect. But then when I looked at what I really wanted to do, it was sharing with the stories, and how to do that wasn't easy with what I was doing at that time. So as I was going down the ancestry research, at the same time in my own life, I was making photo books. And I thought, well, what a great thing to do. I can take all this ancestry research and put it into a photo book. And it was very nice, but it had mistakes, had to redo it. And ultimately, you can't share a hard-covered photo book. It's just mine. It sits on my shelf. So when I looked at Ponga, I thought, this probably is a really good way not only to share the photographs and the research, but also the documents that I have. So that's what I did. I took all that first album and flipped it right into Ponga. And that created a big mammoth book or album, Ponga album, and then shared that with the broader family. And that was a really interesting process. And that's what got me started. And from that, then it was, well, I'm no longer really about ancestry. I'm more about sharing of stories and photographs. That is really what it was about. It was about being a storyteller and a sharer of stories, not necessarily all my stories, other people's stories. And that's how we came together.
I love the way you've always been taking each of these pieces and just try it. You're constantly experimenting, and certainly in the life of startups, that's what we do. Each of these pieces has been an experiment, and it's been a joy to be experimenting on many of these things together. And we've been thrilled to have you be a guest poster for us on our blog, and join us for our Zoom in sessions and so on. It's really been a wonderful way to go about this journey really together.
I think too, Barbara, sorry to interrupt, but I think too what has been really significant for me is maybe I'm a frustrated artist in that I'm able to, with the interaction that we've had and the rope that you guys have given me, I'm able to take my ideas that I think are probably just my ideas, and nobody's going to get it, nobody's going to like it, it's just silliness, and you get it. And so right back to the storyboard idea back earlier in the year, to me it was perfectly obvious that this works. This is exactly what I need. This is what I need to do. And now I can present that story in the way that I see it using the Ponga brush and all those tools. So when you guys, I'm able to share that with you in tips.ponga.com. I'm sharing those ideas and how to do stories for other people, and other people are going to hopefully see a little of their own creative side in that. And I'm really, it's been fantastic to be able to watch it grow, and how that has gone to me taking those albums, turning them into Ponga albums, and then on sharing it with family, because the reaction has been really, really interesting. I think any reaction is great, but the fact that I'm getting these reactions from some of these people who I never met, it's remarkable to me. I never would have reached these people if I didn't share the stories this way.
In planning this series, we wanted to call it Storytellers in appreciation for that dynamic between the speaker, the story itself, and then the people who are listening to it.
Mm,
And there is, in the classic environment of a campfire and a story being told in the campfire, there's the there's the I feel
mm.
you, I hear you, I'm participating with you. And you talk about a moment where one of your cousins, I think, responded to a story, and you called me right back right away and talked about that spark. Can you tell a little bit
Mm.
about that story?
And yeah, it was really interesting with Wendy. I shared a photo with her. There were two cousins that jumped in there, in this photo, and it was a photo of a great uncle of mine. And it's an old photo, 100-year-old photo, and he's playing the violin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not even a blood relative, but he was married to my great aunt. And when I posted that photo in this particular album, the reaction that I got from Wendy was remarkable, because she didn't know he played the violin. That was the first thing. He was a businessman, he was a suit wearing guy. And most of us were afraid of him. And so it sparked this memory for both of us of this time of when we were with our Uncle Bert. And it was magnificent, her reaction to it. And from there, as the conversation goes down, the comments in Ponga were going down, other stuff was coming out. And it led to Bert's wife, my Auntie Pat, and how she had beautiful clothes, and she used to have all her clothes duplicated for our Barbie dolls, right down to the fur collars, you know. And this is all being written in the comments. We're sharing this in the comments. Now, she always thought it was our grandmother that made it. No, it was Auntie Pat. And then there was the Christmas. We all got money for Christmas, and how they spent theirs and we spent ours. A conversation that, we probably never would have shared otherwise. And it all came from a 100-year-old photograph of a great uncle playing the violin.
Yeah. I mean that story and another one you shared about your mother, and I think it was Wendy that told you about your
Mm,
mother, that
mm.
really had us appreciating how, for all the technology we build, it's actually about the stories.
She's made comments about my mom of how lovely she was and how sweet she was. And when we think of our own mothers, we don't think of them that way. We think of them telling us to clean up our rooms and those types of things. She was such complimentary things about my mother, which then led me to think about her mother. And to me, her mother was just as fantastic to me as my mother was to her. And it sparked another conversation about a trip on a boat in Georgian Bay. And do you remember this? And it was fantastic. It also led to a photograph. I had a little tiny school photograph of a boy we both crushed over when we were 14. And it was, and the memory of that, she completely forgot that I got the boy, but I didn't. So, and all this came out in the conversation, in this communication, this sharing of the story. It was brilliant. And what has come from that, Barbara, is that now we are in almost regular communication through email, not through Pong, because it's other stuff. It's not related to the pictures. But and it's been 45 years since I communicated with her. So it's all come by that one photograph of my uncle with the violin.
Yeah. These things as you've continued to experiment with Ponga as this way to connect, starting with the historical photos, and this is the story of the journey, to these are the stories of the memories, to now you've been exploring it with your son.
Yes. Well, my son, I live in the southern hemisphere, and my son lives in the northern hemisphere. And my son is a beautiful man, and he has what I term special abilities. And he's just fantastic. And because of the world we live in at the moment, I'm unable to travel to the northern hemisphere. So we talk a lot on Ponga, and we talk about Ponga a lot. So I said to him, I said, look, I have this album that I sent him years ago, hardcovered album, was his birthday. I think it was his 35th birthday. And I sent him all these full of baby pictures, him and me and all this. And I thought, I'm going to do what I did with the Ancestor album. I'm going to turn that into a Ponga album to share with him. Then as we were sitting there, we got into this, what I like to call the comments in Ponga game. So I said, pick a photograph, Stephen. I think there must have been about 30 photographs in his folder. And I said, pick a photograph and make a comment. And from my end, I'm going to see that comment. So that's what we did. And I would refresh my browser. I'd see his comment. I'd comment back or choose a different photograph and comment back. And of course, the way Ponga works, the most recent photograph that's been commented on goes to the front of the queue. And he'd see it and he'd read my comment in real time. He'd comment back. It continues to be a fun little game that we do. And it also opened up a conversation on a personal level. It was almost therapeutic in one way, because I think he felt quite comfortable in that particular forum, telling me things he hadn't told me before. And so it was very, very personal and incredibly fun all at the same time. Oh, wow. And he loves it, and he tells everybody about it. I know, it's great.
We talk about telling stories. I did this and then this happened. But really telling stories that are getting to the soul, getting to the connection, the connective tissue, and ultimately to bringing us together in ways. And it just tickles me to see how you are always pushing the envelope on ways to do that. You're now exploring travel photos. You do such extraordinary travel with the Grey Nomads all across Australia.
Yeah.
And heading off on another trip now. But in each of these, now you've got a series that's looking back at travel again. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, it was another one of those light bulb moments. And again, probably because of our times right now that we can't travel. It has been a big part of my life. International travel was a big part of my life. And for many, many, many years until last year. And I have always, after a big trip, and everybody does it, whether it's a summer holiday at the lake or you've gone overseas, anything, people make them to put the photographs in. And I have a stack of them. So it dawned on me that I thought, well, hang on, we can't travel at the moment, but I can share my past travel exploits and stories with Ponga using the same process that I did before. So expanding on the storyboard, building a nice canvas and putting a bunch of photos in there. I can expand on that. So what I've done, I've just started doing this, and I've done a trip to France in 2018 and a trip to Italy and Slovenia in 2017. And I love this stuff. It's like, it is like painting to me. I put this on the page, I move it around, and then I can add in, take Slovenia, for example, Italy and Slovenia, we walked something called the Alp Adria Trail, which crisscrosses over the Italian-Slovenian border. We walked for 7 days. So what I can add into that was I've added in links to the Alp Adria websites. I can add into a little bit of information about the Slovenian-Italian border. it's just, and then the little stories that happened. What I've done is I then can share that with my family and say, remember when we could travel?
Yeah.
We missed this. This is what we did. Not all of my family likes to get in airplanes. And so I can take them to these places that I've been, without just photos and email. Here's me at the Eiffel Tower. Here's me at the Colosseum. This is a bit more than that. I can put in historical data. It is kind of like a photo travel journal. I will do it with trips that we do in Australia when we're out doing the Grey Nomad trips. Much like when I moved here from Canada, I got asked all the time, have you ever seen a bear or a moose? So what I get from my Northern Hemisphere family and friends is, have you ever seen a kangaroo?
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of them. So they love the good kangaroo photo, and I can do all that.
Yeah.
So it's just another way of using all the Ponga tools creatively to share the story and share an event.
One of the things that I find so remarkable is it's in the way you have gone about this, and your very thoughtful blog post just the other day about sharing and comparing the experience of sharing in an environment where the people that you're sharing with can engage, can respond on
Mhm.
their own time, and not like the days when slide projectors were the new technology that we sat in front of and watched Uncle, I forget the name, drone on.
Derek. Yeah, I put Uncle Derek,
There we go,
and that's
Uncle
just
D,
Uncle
stand,
D.
standing there and droning on. And that is inflicting the pictures and socially enforcing the attention, which, if anything, turns anybody off of actual travel, and instead bringing them along in the journey with
Yeah.
many rabbit holes to explore, that let you feel the unexpected, that let you pet the cat and enjoy and participate in the experience. And that was really quite lovely.
Well, I think, that, and I think that's true. I think those of us of an age did get exposed, pardon the pun, to the slide projector. Um, and I think that it kind of, what also happens with it as well, with a travel story, or any story, we also remember things because something might trigger the memory.
Mhm.
Right? So you've made a book and you've got all this wonderful information in this book, and then suddenly you go, why didn't I put that in there? Well, guess what? You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can do that. I can put that in. I go, oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I'll go back and put it in.
Yeah,
And that updates it. And you're right. People can come, they'll get notified there's an update, and they'll go, oh, I don't have time today. I'll go back and look at it next week. What I've experienced in this sharing that I do, um, as I said this morning, you had a beautiful blog post on this morning, Instagram post you had this morning about the postcard, and and it's look, I'm a sender of postcards. The only thing about sending the postcard is as soon as you've dropped it in the post, it's gone out of your hands. You're not there for the reaction, any comments the person might make. And you're right, the photograph is not yours. It's a photo of whatever you found that might be nice.
right.
And I also, Barbara, had an experience that I know I spoke briefly with you about, and that I had sent this massive big invite to several of my ancestor albums. And the response I got back was Wendy, my cousin Norman, and a few others. And then it went very quiet. You could hear the crickets. I wasn't hearing back from some people. And I got to the beginning of August, and I just sent a nice thank you out. Thanks, everybody. It's so great to share stories. Well, lo and behold, just yesterday, two of them popped up in their own time. They have picked up the book and decided to sit down and flip the pages.
Yeah.
So, and that's also the beauty of it. You've received an invite. Please go and have a look. It's there for you. Have a look when you're not doing what it is you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And I love it. And they do, they come. It's a little
Yeah.
crumb and they do come and
Yeah.
they look. And it's wonderful. And that you don't get with a letter
Yeah.
or a card. You
Right.
just don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also the other thing that it's a little bit like, especially for my son, who I constantly say to him, please send me an email. Will you just send me an email? Tell me what you're doing. Um, what it does do is it promotes that sharing of stories by writing it down. You can write it, you write the comment, so you're creating words and creating the story. But if you are also not really wanting to type, you can leave a voice recording of
Mm-hmm.
your story.
Mm-hmm.
And that works really well too.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a vocal story or a written story.
Mm-hmm.
It
Now
works
you
perfectly.
well, one of the things that has come up on a number of the conversations that you have led relate to album pages themselves creating context, how to be able to start with a context of the page and then drill down into the picture and then drill down to the picture on the wall in the picture and go into the rest of the kinds of stories of where these things are and why it matters.
Sure.
And
I have, again, I have a load of projects to do. I also have an old family photograph, the old ones with the little sticky corners
hmm
and,
yeah,
all of
I
that.
have some, yeah.
Part of the story of that is how this album was done at that time.
hmm
So that needs to be photographed itself,
yeah,
and that needs to be almost the backdrop to what I will do. That will be my storyboard background, and then bring the photographs out from that.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that the I have all my original photographs, uh, in a place that is going to keep them in the correct place. They need to be saved. They are the treasure. They are absolute treasure. And I try not to touch them, and they're there, and they will be passed on at some point in time. And I hope the next person who has them takes as good care of them, because they are gold. They are priceless.
Yeah.
So with that, then you digitize them properly and you save them and we name them, and then we find ways to share them. And I think with what I've done with Ponga, with the storyboards and using things like Canva and PowerPoint to create the backdrop, and then you can create the mood
hmm
with your backdrop,
hmm
and if you're a bit creative, you can have a real blast with it. So that really helps again tell the story. If you've got a picture of your kids' birthday parties, well, you're not going to put a backdrop of blue sky or the outback. You're going to put balloons and things like that. So you can enhance the story just
yeah,
visually that way.
yeah,
And some photos aren't great photos, but there's a story behind it.
yeah,
And you get to tell that story of
right,
the not so great photograph
right.
and why you're including it, and looking at how to use this in our own personal storytelling way. Love it. It's so good.
Well, you know what? Why don't we take that as a conclusion? and it has been a wonderful conversation, as I knew it would be.
Mm.
We can and have already complemented this conversation with many of the blog posts that you've done at tips.ponga.com, on your own site, Victoria's Press, and of course in your Instagram feed at Victoria's Press. We're happy to be reposting many of those now on at Ponga Stories, along with our own posts at Ponga Pictures. And it's just been such a privilege to have the opportunity to work with you,
Oh,
Victoria. And we look forward to, in the weeks and months to come, years to come, as we take this journey together. I want to
thank you, Barbara. That's terrific. It's been a real pleasure, and I could go on and on talking about how I'm using it and how I like to use it in the stories. And as they keep coming, as stories evolve, and I will write more and share more, and we will talk.
we will talk. We will talk indeed. Thank you so much. Take care now.
Thanks, Barbara.
All right.